farther field, so you pay attention, like a little bit from left field. There's a Taoist story, it's a Chinese religion, that the greatest teacher, the founder was Lao Tzu, and the next greatest teacher is Chuang Tzu. Chuang Tzu is walking, taking a stroll in a private park, and he sees coming towards him a big bird flying with gigantic saucer-like eyes and 7-foot wings spread. Yet it's flying so clumsily, despite its big wings and big eyes, that when it passes him, it slaps him in the forehead. He runs after the bird and sees it lands in a clearing. And when he looks in, he sees that there's a cicada, like a grasshopper, enjoying itself under a shade tree so much that it forgets itself and its safety. The cicada forgets itself and its safety because it's enjoying the shade, unaware that a praying mantis is about to pounce on it. The praying mantis is so focused on its prey, the cicada, that it's forgetful of itself and its safety, unaware the bird is about to pounce on it and eat it. And the bird is so focused on its prey, the praying mantis, that it's unaware and forgetful of itself and its safety, unaware that Chuang Tzu has taken out his bow and arrow, is about to release an arrow at it. Just that moment, the park ranger calls out, "Thief, what are you doing here?" Chuang Tzu runs away, goes home, and secludes himself for 3 days, explaining to his aide, his servant, his humiliation that a person on his spiritual level was involved in this lowly scene, and he got humiliated. What's the scene here? The scene is this karmic change, just like in the Maggid. The cicada, eaten by the praying mantis, eaten by the bird, and the human would be him, Chuang Tzu. But he was humiliated by being considered a thief. He's a high spiritual person. Now, if he would have killed the bird, he would have had even worse happen to him. You see? It's measure for measure. So the point of this is, that gave me the clue. He didn't belong there. Chuang Tzu does not belong in this lowly cause and effect chain. The human representative in Chaydagyah is not a rabbi, not a tzaddik. It's a butcher, a shochet. A shochet is not the representative of humanity. And if he is, there's a repercussion. He gets killed. When we kill animals, we get killed. That's what the meaning of that is. When we shecht, we are shechted. Hillel said, I wrote a book by Hillel. Hillel said, because he saw a skull floating in the water, he said, because you drowned others, you were drowned. And those who drowned you will also be drowned. What comes around goes around. Yeah. He who lives by the sword dies by the sword. So, Chaydagyah is saying, if we want to have the ultimate redemption, we can't kill animals. We can't eat animals. The Torah, the Passover Seder, is built around eating the Passover lamb. And the last thing in the whole book, whole Haggadah, is a protest against it. It's a protest against the lamb. Now, there's more to say about this because it's mind-blowing. Well, let me explain. Now, first of all, I want to mention Reb Zalman Schachter changed his name from Schachter, which means a shochet, to Schachter Shalomi, because a person on a madrega doesn't have a lowly. A shochet is not the name of a tzaddik. Or I'm putting that a little bit. Okay, so now God has allowed us to kill animals in this time in history. You're allowed to eat animals, but God doesn't want it. It's a compromise. In the Garden of Eden, there was no eating of meat. And when the end of days comes, the lion will lie with the lamb. There will no meat eating. No meat eating. It's a compromise God makes. When he sees humans are violent, and he tells them, eat meat. He tells Noach, eat meat, but don't kill humans because they're in the image of God. Exactly what we've been talking about. That's what it says. So, 1 second. Okay. Now, let's look at the beginning of Chaydagyah again. The little boy is singing. The little boy represents, children don't want animals to be slaughtered. They don't. So the little boy is singing this ditty. he represents Adam and Eve. He represents humanity because kids don't want animals to be slaughtered. But the father buys into the karma. The father and the shochet buy into the karma. That's why Tuzuzim comes in. Because it's no longer a matter of love. You see? Little boy, it's love. When you get the Tuzuzim involved, buying and selling, it's no longer love. So you know the story, Zlata the goat by Abi Singer? There are more than one story in Jewish tradition where a parent wants to sell a goat. Many families have goats for milk and wants to sell it to the butcher, and the kid protests.
Yeah.
The kid protests. The kid is like Adam and Eve before the sin. The kids don't want their animals to be killed. So, now, this is something further. It says Gadya is a Gedi. Now, as a matter of fact, they translate that a little goat, right? Not so. A Gedi is also a lamb. The word Gedi means a lamb as well as a goat. So when we're saying Chad Gadya, one little goat, it's one little lamb. This is right after the Passover lamb.
What's the source for that?
Look in the dictionary. Look in the Torah. Look in the Chumash.
Give me an example of Gedi means lamb.
Look in the concordance. Look up, find Gedi in a where it's in the Torah and see what it means. Look up. It means lamb. And for instance, so a lamb and the goat are okay for a Passover sacrifice. A lamb and a goat are okay for Passover sacrifice. We prefer the lamb, but now some people say that meat eating is okay because the animals were created for this purpose. Not true. Lubavitch says that. Not true. Because there's a story in the Talmud, I'm sure maybe you may know it, of Rabbi Yehuda, the Hanasi, who he's on the street and a calf breaks away from a butcher and runs up to him and sticks its head under his robe. And he says, I can't help you, for this you were created. God rewarded him for his cruelty with a 13-year toothache. Measure for measure. He was cruel to the animal, so God made him suffer from a toothache. And then, at the end of 13 years, his daughter, or another version says his maid, was sweeping out some kittens behind the door, a litter of kittens, and he said, leave them alone, because it says, his mercies, Rachamav al Kol Ma'asav, in Psalm 145, God's mercies are over all his works. And the toothache went away. Because he showed mercy, so God showed mercy on him. Now listen to this. The thing is that it's not fortuitous. It's 13 years toothache, because 13 is the number of the attributes of God's mercy, right? So Chad Gadya, there are 6 hymns at the end of the Haggadah. They're in pairs. They start with the same opening. Uvachein, but Chad Gadya is the last one. The one next to last is what? What goes with Chad Gadya? Echad miyadeya. Echad miyadeya. They start with Echad. Echad and Chad, right? Echad miyadeya. Who knows one? And it ends with what? 13 are God's merciful attributes. That's what we're talking about with Chad Gadya. That if you want the final redemption, you can't eat meat. You can't slaughter Passover lambs. But the Chad Gadya goes with Echad miyadeya. And it applies to animals, because when it says in Psalm 145, God's mercy over all his works, the rabbis interpret that but relating to animals. That's why Yehuda the prince said, leave him alone, God's mercy over all his works. Further evidence for this. Jonah, the book of Jonah, which you read on Yom Kippur, the book of Jonah is a parody of the hardline religious people who don't want God to forgive. So Jonah runs away from God because he doesn't want God to forgive the Ninevites. And at the last scene, which is like a comic scene, he's steaming, he's fuming, Jonah. The guy says, what are you upset about? He says, I know you're going to be merciful and forgive them. And he says the 13 attributes. He says, you're merciful and gracious. That's the 13 attributes. He doesn't want God to have the 13 attributes. But God says, shouldn't I have mercy on all these Gentiles who don't know the right hand from the left, you know, the animals. Because God's mercy extends to the Gentiles and the animals. And Jonah, this hardline prophet, idiot, is fuming because God is merciful. But this was written by the softline people. This book was written not by Jonah, it was written by the softline people, making fun of Jonah. Because the mainstream tradition wants Hillel beats out Shammai. So, now, one second. So, now, okay. Now, by the way, I had my own experience when I was a child, like many kids. I loved animals, and I got channeled into biology and into science, and I found myself in graduate school in University of Michigan torturing animals for experiments.
Alive?
Yeah, torturing animals for experiments. And I said, "Oh, I got into this because I loved animals." They took my boyish love for animals and channeled me into a scientific thing. So I dropped out. This was the beginning of my becoming religious. And so I had this thing with a kid, this thing, Chadadiyah, one little goat, and the father is the one who's selling out. I had the same experience. I went from being an innocent child, like Adam and Eve, like the boy of Chadadiyah, to the adult who buys into the karma, buys into the torture. But I dropped out. It says, by the way, in Exodus 12:5, you should take a small young animal, without blemish, a male of the first year, from the sheep and from the goats. You should take it. It's for a passive sacrifice. It's the sheep and the goats. Now, one more thing. This is two more things, but very short. King David, a prophet came to King David. This was Natan. And he said to him, a person had a poor man who had one little lamb, and it was like a daughter to him. It ate from his own plate, and he carried it around and loved like a daughter. And a rich man who had big flocks had a visitor come, and instead of taking one of his own sheep for a meal, he took the poor man's lamb and slaughtered it to make a meal for the visitor. And David says he shall die, or something, some strong thing for the judgment on this person. And the prophet says, "You're the man," because David has 20 wives, 50 wives, and he took Bathsheba from Uriah. But the point of this is that, listen to the way the prophet speaks about the lamb. The lamb, the person considers the lamb like a daughter. This is the way the prophet thinks about it, like a daughter. Does he want the lamb to be slaughtered for a meal? I think not. Now, so what's the Passover is not the ultimate. The ultimate is Tu B'Shvat, the only holiday created by the Kabbalists, because Passover is about meat eating, and the ultimate is Tu B'Shvat, which is about the return of all humanity to the Garden of Eden. We eat fruit from the tree of life. The only holiday created by the Kabbalists.
What do you mean created? It was long before the Kabbalists. They made a Seder to do this.
It wasn't a holiday. It was a date for a tithe. It was a date for a tithe.
No, it was also considered Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Hashanah.
It wasn't. No, not true.